sorry to say, but it's mostly filmmakers who watch short films. You're not going to get many, everyday folk watching short films. So the main reason to do short films is just to learn about filmmaking. And for me, I will often think about making a short film, understanding that while I'm making this short film, it'll probably start to inspire ideas of how I could adapt this smaller idea into a bigger idea.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Story Building, where the storytellers are here to tell us things. Today's guest is filmmaker, videographer, and YouTuber, which nowadays are all just the same thing. It is Adon. Welcome to One Story Building.
Thank you for having me.
After watching many of your videos, I remember a key thing that you said. You said that filmmaking is a combination of the processes of creative, technical, and labor skills. And you also said that doing filmmaking things bleeds into other aspects of your life to improve those aspects of your life. So please do tell, how does learning how to become a filmmaker improve non-filmmaking parts of one's life?
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite interesting because I feel like learning about filmmaking affects almost every part of your life. It's such a multifaceted activity that you just learn such a variety of things from it. So, for example, one of the main things that I learned from making Heretics, the feature film a few years ago, is scheduling. So before making Heretics, I never really thought too much about scheduling, but then going through it, of course, there's all kinds of different ways that you need to use creative scheduling along the way, to the point where now I've been able to use those skills in scheduling for my everyday life. Because at the moment I work a full-time job. I've got a couple businesses and starting a new business, but then I'm also trying to do films as well. And as well as, keeping, doing my exercise and having a personal life and all that stuff. And the only reason I'm able to fit all of those things in is because I do the proper scheduling each day to get enough of it done so that then I can enjoy myself as well. So, yeah, I wake up in the morning at this time, I go to the gym at this time, I walk the dog at this time, I have this much time for breakfast and shower and all that, and then a little bit of time for work, and then drive off to work and do some more work. So that's kind of just one example. But yeah, you kind of learn so many things from film. And another important thing that you also learn from film, in my experiences at least, is confidence. Because you're basically going through quite a trial by fire, and by the end of that, you have developed all of these skills, and that just makes you feel so much more capable. And then it makes you curious about what else you can achieve with these things that you've learned.
I think it also helps that when you're dealing with films, you're very often dealing with people, if not many people. There's,
Yeah.
grips, camera operators, and many
Yeah.
actors. And as I have said before, the greatest skill that any actor has to learn is how to not be excruciatingly bored when it is there, when they are waiting around for their time to be on camera. In your experience, what are some tips that you could give actors to pass the time when they're just about to have their scene?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's important to choose projects where there's sort of good chemistry between you and the director or whoever it might be. And I also think it's quite good for actors to learn a little bit about the filmmaking process, just enough to kind of understand what is going on around them, so that then they have something that they can talk about, I suppose, because I find on quite a lot of film sets you often get a bit of a divide, so I see a lot of the time, the actors will kind of hang out together and then the crew will hang out together over there. And I feel like it would be quite valuable for the actors to learn a bit about this and the crew to learn a bit about this, so that they can just kind of talk and hang out and yeah, just be comfortable together.
Thank you for calling actors actors and not the talent. I think when actors
Ah,
get called the talent, it sort of gets to their head a little bit. I mean, acting is is the job. So yeah, stop calling actors talent is my point. I I
I didn't,
remember.
I didn't know that actors didn't like to be called talent. I don't usually call them talent, but
No,
I'm going to keep that in
they
mind.
they might enjoy it. My point is, don't call them the talent, because it increases their already enormous egos. Not that I know anything about that.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
I remember when I was learning how to make film all those years ago, and
Hmm.
the greatest lesson that I learned about making film is restriction is the mother of creativity. Because when I was learning filmmaking at
Yeah.
school, we had at least two filmmaking competitions, and in both of them, the winners of those competitions were not only in black and white, but they were silent movies. And I thought, okay, I'm sure that there are tens of thousands of student films that are really crappy, have no budget, might do something like that, and still turn out to be kind of bad. But can
Hmm.
you think of any low budget movies, not just Australian ones, but just like in general, low budget movies that an aspiring filmmaker should check out to know how to do so much with so little?
I mean, okay. So, I mean, the first ones that come to mind, and that's probably just
Yours?
because I mean, I would love to say mine, um, uh, just kind of because I have been talking to a lot of filmmakers lately, and a lot of filmmakers that are kind of like local to me and that kind of thing. And some of the films that I've seen, especially lately, coming out from independent filmmakers, have been quite impressive, you know? And I think because these days, filmmaking is more accessible than it has ever been before. And for virtually no money or very little money, you can get quite a lot of production value. Just using the basics and just having that good foundational knowledge of filmmaking and lighting and how to craft a good story and that kind of thing. Yeah, so some of my fellow filmmakers recently, like Hasbula Kushkashki with Rampage Electra, and then Brad Newland with Radio Man and a few things like that. Those are independent films and primarily self-funded films with a little bit of support here and there. Um, but yeah, like I went in to see both of those films, and yeah, for independent filmmakers and for filmmakers that like are still relatively new, just much like myself, the production value is really high, and you could easily place it next to these sort of big budget Hollywood films, essentially.
So, what kind of life do you think someone should have or try to give themselves that would turn them into a good filmmaker?
Um, yes. Okay. There's probably a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of details that can probably go into an answer for this kind of question. So what kind of lifestyle should someone have to become a filmmaker? Well, firstly, I mean, and this kind of goes for probably any lifestyle. They should learn to kind of take care of themselves and learn how to. Um, there's so many parts. I'm just trying to put this answer into some kind of like succinct way. Um,
Take care of themselves, like take care of their health so they don't go crazy when they're on set
yeah,
because
yeah,
they haven't eaten.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a lot of the time you'll get people coming into the industry who are quite new, and they love like the art side of it and everything, and that's all good and all. But it's kind of like at no point they really think about like the real side of what's going on, and there's a few things to that, so yeah, you might get stressed out on a film, so you need to make sure that you're still maintaining a personal life, but you also need to think about the business side of what you're doing, because that's important as well, and you kind of need to have a balanced approach across all aspects of the film. Um, yeah so um, so for my yeah so for myself, I think there are a lot of filmmakers who struggle to find the time to work on their ideas. But I don't think that's necessarily an issue of them finding time to work on their ideas. I think it's just an issue of them struggling to prioritize what they want in life more so. I would guarantee that most of the people that say that they don't have enough time simply, like they don't really want to forego some of their comforts and sacrifice that in order to work on what they want to achieve. So for instance, the last 3 or 4 months for me, I set myself a rule. I'm not allowed to watch TV or play video games during weekdays, and all I'm allowed to do is sit down and do some writing. And then because I set that rule, I've written more than I have before, and I've broken a few personal records in that way. So and it didn't really, it didn't start with that. There were a lot of other things that I did, so I got better with drinking more water rather than sugary drinks and that kind of thing, and then that increased my energy levels, and then I'm able to sort of output more, and yeah, I'm able to do so much more without you know without running my battery to empty.
Did you listen to music while you were writing?
Music is something I listen to from time to time. It's not really a starting place for me, but every now and then, maybe I get stuck at a certain point in the story, and I really need to kind of get into the character's head and visualize what they would be thinking at a particular moment, and maybe there's a piece of music that helps with that. But then every now and then I would stumble across a song that just kind of naturally starts to conjure images in my head. So then I'm like, okay, there's something here, and then I'll kind of listen to that song quite often. But honestly, with me, actually, I'm actually not much of a music fan in general. I actually don't really listen to music. For me, I'm quite a visual person, so a music video I would actually enjoy. And then if there's a good music video, then maybe that would actually make me start to enjoy the music as well. And then, of course, the main kind of music that I do like would be in the form of film soundtrack.
Yeah, film soundtracks, game soundtracks, lo-fi, whatever the hell that means, remixes of game stuff. I just thought of this literally just now. I think listening to music when you're writing or doing some sort of creative work might be a bit of a positive and a bit of a negative, because it can
Hmm.
boost your emotions in the moment for you to
Hmm.
come up with greater emotional ideas to write down. But it might
Yeah.
also give you a bit of a false impression as to how good what you're writing is. It's like how, I mean, I come up against this all the time when I'm writing something and then rewriting it, and then by draft 7 I'm like, oh, this is so
Hmm.
good. And it's like, well, of course I think that, because I've been with these characters for like, months and months. But when the audience sees
Yeah.
it, they're not going to have that backlog of emotions. Yeah,
Hmm.
you got to pick your moments.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think sometimes listening to music can have a bit of a side effect every now and then, So I might be trying to write a particular scene, and I might not necessarily be able to find the exact kind of music that's trying to tell the scene that I'm trying to write. And yeah, so I'll listen to the music, and it's kind of like trying to steer me in another direction. I'm like, no, that's really not what I'm after. So then I'm just like, okay, no, cut off the music. We're just gonna write this myself.
In your video, How to Break Down a Script as a Producer, you said that it's important to be able to visualize the script that you're reading as a movie poster, or even a trailer just from the script. But
Yes.
why is that important for a producer to extrapolate?
So I mean, I think being able to imagine it easily as a poster just comes along with it's just down to being able to summarize the idea, or making the idea clear enough so it's easily marketable. Like if someone's asking you about your film and you're like taking three different paragraphs to explain what the idea is, then you're probably going to bore the person to death, and they're not going to be interested. But if you can say to them, yeah, if you can summarize your idea in a really clear, succinct, and interesting way that just like instantly makes them start to imagine what is going to be happening in this film, then you've got them, you know. Yeah, you know, you've pretty much hooked them at that point, and they kind of need to see these characters in real life now.
It's like the visual equivalent of the elevator pitch. You could say,
Yeah,
man
exactly.
saves his daughter from henchmen, or show you a poster of a guy with like a gun, and the daughter's like, so yeah, as
Yeah.
you gotta keep it simple.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you tell your idea to someone and like almost instantly they start being like, "Oh, yes, and then this can happen, and then this can happen, and then this can happen," then it probably means that you're on something.
Mm. There is a big time difference between many short films and many feature-length movies, because short films sometimes at most go for 15, maybe 20
Mhm.
minutes, sometimes 3 minutes,
Yeah.
and major motion pictures, they go for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But when you're thinking of an idea, just in general, what
Yep.
determines whether it will be a short film or a motion feature length movie?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a few things. So if you're adapting an idea, for example, it depends on how much source material you have to go off of. And I guess it also depends on yeah, on how many details I guess this idea can have. Um, and I guess it also depends on the experience level, because I would probably say that the main reason for people to make short films would probably be to practice making films or to learn making films, because it's, I mean, you know, it's like, sorry to say, but it's mostly filmmakers who watch short films. You know, you're not going to get many you know, everyday folk watching short films. So the main reason to do short films is just to learn about filmmaking. And for me, I will often think about making a short film, understanding that while I'm making this short film, it'll probably start to inspire ideas of how I could adapt this smaller idea into a bigger idea.
It's like open mic night at a comedy club. Other comedians are going to be 90% of the audience, just to see the kids grow up.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you know, choosing the length of the film is quite important. And when people are starting out, like definitely just start out with short films and just make sure, you know, like test, you know, each short film that you make should focus on one particular technique that you want to practice in particular. And then once you've sort of gotten a few of those out of the way, then you can tackle a feature film that kind of includes all of those aspects.
Well, speaking of starting a career in film, you said the following quote: "Starting a career in film will require that you create some kind of portfolio of work and build some kind of reputation before you can step it up a notch and begin into professional league of filmmakers." Maybe I misheard you, or I forgot to write something. Anyway, and this is the exact reason why I tell people not to study filmmaking or really any sort of creative endeavor in a academic kind of way, because nowadays, I mean, you were saying that filmmaking is so accessible nowadays, you can just start doing it. And I hate giving that advice, because that's what everyone says, like, to do it you just have to start doing it.
Hmm.
It gets said so often, because
Hmm.
you can just make something and then put it online to show off how impressive you are, because that's really the name of the game. How impressive are you to other people? When I commission someone to do a poster for me, or a bit of music, I never look at their credentials, like what university did they go to. I just say that,
Hmm.
do that for me, for money, and that's it. That really is as deep as it goes. But
Yeah.
how does someone go about building a filmmaking portfolio?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a change in mindset is definitely quite important here. I think there would be a lot of people that are just kind of, you know, they'll make a film, then they'll have another idea, and they'll make another film, and make another film, and make another film. And I think one of the main things that is probably lacking is some form of strategy. You know, and an easy way to get started with making a proper strategy is probably just that classic idea of just, you know, where will you be in 5 years. And yeah, sort of, you know, have a bit of purpose behind what you're doing, because I will see a lot of people who they are always making short films. They probably make a short film every single week, but and I've probably seen these people over a number of years, and yet for some reason the quality of their work has not improved. Plenty of people do, but there are some people who do not improve, no matter how many of these films that they actually make. And yeah, and I think that just comes down to you make it, you plan a film, you make a film, and then after that, take a moment to really sort of analyze what it is that you've done, what you can do better, and then think about the next project and see how you can push it a few steps further. I also see a lot of people who for some reason, they've sort of convinced themselves that there are certain things that aren't quite important, like good lighting or good audio and that kind of thing. And if you're not willing to uh, respect what is required to make a good film, then you can't really expect other people to, you can't really expect other people to come and watch it, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah.
I am of the opinion, and I guess this goes, I guess more so for YouTube videos or just on online videos more than films, that audio is very often more important than visuals, because you can sort of you can squint your eyes sometimes. You can't sort of like try and listen harder for something.
Yeah, I think when I started to study film, this was quite some time ago now, but the very first thing that they ever taught us was that yeah, so if your film sounds bad, then people will also think that it looks bad as
Mm,
well.
mm,
Yeah, whereas yeah, if you have good audio and you have sort of okay quality footage, then you could actually probably get away with it. But if you have bad audio, then people will not forgive it.
mm.
Which is also a tragedy, because yeah, I think sound is probably one of the most overlooked things, and you can ask any sound recordist and they'll probably agree.
Yeah, I guess sound is one of those invisible, underappreciated skills. It's like editing, where if it's good, no one really seems to care, but if it's bad, it's really, really noticeable.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, like, and it goes for like every department in film. Like, if everyone has done their job, then you will never think about them. If they've done their job, then all you're thinking about is the story and the characters and everything. But if you're watching a film, then and you're like, oh wow, that camera movement was fantastic, then I mean, did they really do a good job? Because you're not really watching the movie. I mean, of course, this can be different for filmmakers sometimes, because they're kind of watching movies naturally thinking about what's happening behind the scenes. But yeah, for the everyday person, if they're thinking about the camera movements and the sound, or the quality of the costumes or something, then yeah, I
So, what do
guess
you think actors and crew are looking for and hoping for when it comes to the director of the film?
hmm I mean, everyone seems to still like me after working with me, so hopefully I can say a few things to this. I mean, things that I try to do, at least on a film, is I try to make everything very inclusive. I love to collaborate with people. So sometimes we might be on set and someone might ask a question, and sometimes I'll have the answer, but sometimes I won't. And then I just kind of open it up to the room. Like, what does everybody think that we should do? And then some people will have some ideas, and we all just kind of work on it together. And another important thing that I try to do, and sometimes it's easier than others, is I try to keep the mood light. I try to make sure that everyone's having fun. On a film set, I do probably put everyone before myself a little bit, just because I want to make sure that this is a comfortable, a safe, and a fun environment to work on. Um, and yeah, like, I really do just want it to feel like everyone is hanging out. And then there's kind of like a double bladed sword there, because I want everyone to have a great time, but at the same time, from my perspective, I feel like I don't make it easy on anybody. You know, I feel like everyone works really, really quite hard, but at the same time, they're loving it.
There are thousands and thousands of movies, and someone could watch a movie once a week for the rest of their life, starting at like 1 year of age. So what is the point of making new movies when you can just recycle the ones over and over again?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of another question where there's a few different parts to it. So I think one of them is that society and the human race in general is constantly developing and changing and growing and whatever other word you might want to use. And I think as that happens, the types of stories, the types of films, the techniques that we use to tell these stories kind of needs to adapt as well and meet the expectations of each new audience as they emerge. But not only that, I think that there are a lot of stories that no matter when they were set, can still resonate with audiences today. And I think as well, yes, because there are thousands of films and whatever else it might be, but then really when you look at it, there's still a lot of gaps. There are still a lot of stories, there's still a lot of perspectives that we don't know, and the audience is like the number of audiences is increasing as well, which therefore kind of means that we need we need a lot more films as well. So the number of filmmakers growing is kind of matching the growth of the audience, which I think is quite good. But not only that, I think for a long period of time, the primary type of film that people are able to watch is typically the studio film. Whereas now, that certainly is not the only option. And I think because there are enough people, there is a big enough audience of people who like the studio film and a big enough audience of people who like the independent film. And then you can also stretch it out into all the different niches of film. Like I could not even possibly list the number of niches in the world that you could make a film for, and you would have a dedicated audience for that particular niche, for that particular story. Yeah, so despite the fact that there are lots and lots of films, I think there are lots of films because there are so many different types of people looking for different types of stories.
We're hitting the climax of this discussion. So, of course, I have to ask the question, what is the greatest movie of all time?
I think that's probably a question that no one's really able to answer. Certainly not me. I've never been able to narrow down my films to a favorite film. I do have a top 10. Um, there's one that I'm always able to watch. I've always enjoyed Gladiator. But I guess if we're talking about in terms of top film, I'd probably say maybe the first Lord of the Rings movie. I feel
Mm.
like that's probably a film that you can talk about that no one's really going to have a problem with. The sequels, yeah, maybe. But the first Lord of the Rings film by itself, I think most people tend to consider that one pretty flawless.
Mm. It had a giant octopus in it. Good question. So, as we are discussing art, and especially digital art, we must bring up the gigantic AI generated elephant in the room, AI generated art. At this point,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that an AI thing would be able to write a script for a 2 hour long movie,
Mhm.
CGI generated, make all the
Yeah.
voices and the noises and everything, and it probably
Mhm.
would actually be kind of great. So, what are we supposed to be thinking about when filmmakers see this stuff? Like, where are we headed when it comes to people-made movies?
Well, again, it just comes back to that idea of niches and different audiences, like I think, yeah, like I think there will absolutely be a point in time where AI can make a great movie. And then I think it'll probably just get to the point where, there will be a category of people that prefer, whatever this kind of movie is, but then there'll be a category of people that prefer, the human made movies. But that being said, when it does get to that point, I think there will be, people will be forced to adapt. But I think that's kind of on us as creatives. It's kind of on us to be able to adapt and to learn and to try new things. And like we were kind of saying before, that uh, you know creativity is born out of necessity, right? So if every single, like, let's just say that if every single film in the world became created by AI, then obviously that would create some kind of issue, because there would be all these people who no longer have an ability to create films, because there's no point, because the AI will create it in an hour when they would take 3 years to make it. And that would just become another problem to overcome using creativity in some way. And yeah, I think the only reason why things would be actually destroyed by AI if people just stopped trying.
I think different forms of art are going to be cut down in different ways when it comes to AI generated stuff. People who are voiceover artists, I think they're going to be hit pretty hard. But someone who
Hmm.
writes books about life, I don't think an AI is going to hurt them as much because they have a story. And I think filmmakers are
Mm.
going to be a little bit safe, maybe, hopefully, because a filmmaker, when they come up with an idea, it's based on their life, pretty
Hmm.
much. It's based on their story. So I think, appropriately enough, stories are the things that's going to be the wall that's going to stop
Hmm.
the flood of AI generated stuff. Because if a
Yep.
computer makes it, it might be entertaining, but where's the heart? Where's the story? It isn't there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I think there's a type of film that AI can totally get. I think it could totally make that particular type of film, but I just know that there will always be other types of film, um, yeah, that can only really come from a single person's perspective or opinion, or that kind of thing. Whereas AI wouldn't necessarily have opinion; it would just have, a collection of opinions that it's basing the idea on.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I do enjoy most types of movies. I enjoy the big blockbusters. I enjoy the little micro budget indies. I enjoy the mix of them. But I probably would say that there are a lot of those, yeah, a lot of the really big ones that are, when you bring it down to its core, a basic formula type story, and AI could totally nail those. Like, they're simple and easy. It could do those easy, but there's always that, yeah, those more sort of, yeah, those unique sort of artistic ones, and those will always exist, I think.
Well, talking about making movies by people to take down AI generated movies, Film Industry Gateway, your company, your creation. Tell us about it. What is it? What does it do? What's it for?
Well, so these are still the early days of Film Industry Gateway, and during these early stages, Film Industry Gateway is focusing on film education, because one thing that I see all the time whenever I meet new people or whatever it might be is that there are just so many people that want to work in film in some way or another, but just have absolutely no idea where to start. It's just this big exclusive club, this big mystery, and unlike other industries, it's not really something where you can just hand in a resume somewhere and hope that you get the job. It's not really that simple, and it's kind of something where you need to create your own opportunities, and it kind of came from that. And then, now that I do have a few films under my belt, I thought, well, what can I do with this to sort of help other people get started? Because, like we were saying earlier in the interview, I think filmmaking can do so much more. A lot of people might want to have the Netflix thing and the big money and whatever else it might be. But even if you don't get to that stage, filmmaking can give you so many other things like confidence and a long list of skills and a network of friends and colleagues and all these people that you can sort of like rely on and draw on, and just so many different things that you can get out of filmmaking. And yeah, I just wanted to help people explore that, because I also find that there are a lot of people who, they'll get caught up in the sort of pre-made path of life. They'll get a job, they'll get married, and they'll get a house and kids and all that stuff, and then they'll get to a certain point in life where they realize that they never really chose to have what they have. um, or perhaps they get to that point and they realize that at no point did they give themselves room for other options. And I really want to give people other options, because if they learn to make films, then they learn to discover themselves before they start going into other commitments, which I think is really important for mental health in general. So
I like asking this question to teachers and instructors because it
mhm.
freaks them out. Aren't you a little bit afraid of the fact that people will learn what you're teaching them, but the student will become the master too quickly and they will knock you off your perch?
I would love if that happened. That would be incredible. If I was teaching someone and they became so like amazing at what they're doing that they were able to like exceed and they blow up into this big like superstar or whatever it might be, that would be incredible. Like I would love every second of that. I feel like I would probably be obsessed with their career at that point. I would like watch everything that they do. That would be the just like the best thing ever. What like that's one of my favorite things about making films is that I get to pick people that maybe wouldn't be picked typically, and I get to give them their first role in a film or something like that. And a lot of these people are actually like fantastic at what they do. So yeah, and then as well, like when we're on film sets, I like to be inclusive because I like to give people the opportunity to explore something new. So like my whole thing is just enabling people to do more and try new things.
Yeah, you could put that famous person on your portfolio. My portfolio is that guy.
That's exactly it. Like if someone in my course like just blew up and became a superstar, their face would be on like every bit of marketing material that
Mm,
I put out.
clever, very clever. And just like that, we have come to the final question of One Story
Hmm.
Building, which, as fans will all know, why are stories important?
I mean, this comes down to a philosophical question, I suppose. But yeah, stories at their core is a very valuable way for us to learn things. So we can either learn about the world around us, we learn about ourselves, as I've said, but we also learn through these artificial experiences. So of course, the film might be set in space or in another dimension or something like that, whatever it might be, and it'll be set in these situations where us ourselves could never possibly be in that situation, and yet somehow we're empathizing with a portion of this character and we are learning more about what we would do in this situation. And of course that situation might be absurd, but still it teaches us how we make decisions and therefore helps us make decisions in the real world.
Perfection. Adam Blake, thank you so much for coming on to One Story Building.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to catch up with a fellow filmmaker and just talk about films.